It's human nature to want to be recognized and acknowledged. Kids want to show off their art to their parents. Employees want to stand out at work. And even citizens of towns or countries get some kind of patriotic thrill out of their place of residence being known for being the best or the biggest or whatever their claim to fame may be. Unfortunately, being a standout isn't always a good thing, especially when you're better than everyone else at something unenviable. Number 10. Lake Michigan is by far the deadliest lake in America. Any body of water is potentially dangerous. Accidents happen on the water all the time, and around 4,000 Americans drown every year. But of all the places in America where you need to be wary of getting in the water, no place has a worse reputation than Lake Michigan. In 2022, 43 people drowned in Lake Michigan. Its rip currents are infamous and have claimed hundreds of lives over the years. There were 48 deaths in 2021, 56 in 2022, and 48 in 2019. Compare that to other lakes known for their high fatality rates like Lake Champlain and Vermont, where a dozen people drown per year. Lake Lanier has claimed 700 lives since 1956 and is sometimes considered to be America's most dangerous when averaged out. Accidents, injuries, and fatalities are par for the course year after year, and it does stand to reason since as many as 10 million people will visit the lake in any given year. Stats show that many of the accidents on the man-made lake are the result of drinking while boating, but even the current yearly stats there are far less than what Lake Michigan is doing. Number 9. Every county in Mississippi has teen pregnancy rates above the national average. In 2012, Mississippi was struggling with the fact that literally every county in the state had a higher teen pregnancy rate than the national average. It was blamed in part on the fact that the state had historically not taught sex education in schools and instead tried to rely on abstinence-only education. Obviously, that's not very effective, so they planned to shift to a new educational program to help fix the numbers. Fast forward to 2020, and Mississippi had indeed lowered their overall rate of teen pregnancy. That said, so had every other state, and Mississippi was still the state with the highest teen pregnancy rates in the country. In fact, even on the world stage, it's pretty bad. Teen pregnancy rates in Mississippi had been as high as 111 per 1,000 in some counties back in 2012. They lowered that to 71.9 in some counties. But the world rate for teen pregnancy was actually only 42.5 in 2021. Across the whole state, rates are now down to an average of 27.9 per 1,000. That still puts Mississippi in the number 1 spot across the United States, but it's getting closer to some of the others. Number 8. More New Jersey millennials live with their parents than in any other state. Whether this qualifies as a dubious honor really depends on your own opinions, but the media certainly made something of the revelation that millennials in New Jersey were opting to live with their parents for far longer than those in other states. Based on US Census data, New Jersey ranked at the top of the list when it came to adult children aged 18 to 34 who stayed with mum and dad. In 2015, 46.9% of them were still at home. That was an increase of over 10% from 10 years earlier. The national average was 34.1%, while North Dakota was at the other end of the scale with just 14.1% sticking around. Cost of living in New Jersey seems to be a key factor in most millennials choosing to stay with their parents. It's too expensive to go independent, and finding jobs elsewhere seems to be an issue, though the specific reason why this affects those in New Jersey more than anywhere else isn't clear. Number 7. Wyoming's suicide rate is much higher than the national average. In 2020, about 1.2 million Americans attempted suicide. Nearly 46,000 people succeeded. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death, and it crosses through all demographics. But of all the states in America, Wyoming has the most serious problem with this issue. Wyoming's suicide rate was 30.5 per 100,000, and that's more than twice the national average of 14. It's also the highest rate per capita. In 2023, while it seems to have gone down slightly to 29.3, it's still high above all other states. The sheriff of Casper, the state's largest city, said that they respond to suicide calls twice as often as shoplifting ones. The state has been trying to deal with the issue, though the reasons behind it remain complex and puzzling. Some have pointed out that Wyoming has long been the heart of cowboy country and a place where men stereotypically keep their thoughts and feelings to themselves, where you have to man up rather than address serious issues. Number 6. Kentucky has the highest cancer rates in the country. Cancer is the second leading cause of death in the United States behind heart disease. On average, there are 438 cases of cancer per every 100,000 Americans, and nearly 2 million people per year will be diagnosed. A state like New Mexico comes in on the far end of the scale with 361.1 cases per 100,000, making them one of the lowest in the entire country and a fair degree below the national average. But Kentucky has the unfortunate distinction of being the opposite side of things. There are 500 110.2 cases per 100,000 in Kentucky, giving it the highest cancer rate in the country. It also has the highest rate of cancer deaths as well. Breast cancer and lung cancer were the two most common types in the state. The exact reasons can't be broken down clearly, but anything from diet and weight to physical activity and pollution can contribute to rates. 5. The murder rate in St. Louis is massively higher than the national average. In 2020, the homicide rate in the United States was 6.52 murders per 100,000. That was historically higher than it has been since 2001. While bigger cities are often cited as being unsafe, with New York and Chicago as standouts for their violence, neither comes particularly close to being the deadliest city in the country. That's an honor which goes to St. Louis. In 2019, there were 194 murders in St. Louis. That rose to 263 in 2020, 200 in 2021, and 200 again in 2022. Per 100,000 residents, that's a murder rate of 69.4. Compared to the national average of 6.52, that is a staggering increase. Baltimore is the second deadliest city, and the rate drops considerably to 51.1. Chicago, often referenced for its gun violence in the media, is down in the 10th spot with 24 murders. In 2017, New York's murder rate was just 3.7, which didn't even rank it in the top 50. Number 4. Hawaii's cost of living is far higher than the rest of the country. Hawaii is the one state in America that qualifies as a tropical vacation destination. Nearly 1 million people visit Hawaii every month, so it's safe to say people love to visit there. That said, living there may be another matter altogether, as the cost of living in Hawaii is remarkably higher than anywhere else in America. After Manhattan, Honolulu is the most expensive city in America in which to live, with the cost of living 97.6% above the national average. It also works out more than 20% higher than the average wage. This is chiefly due to the remote location of the island state. All supplies are flown or shipped in by boat, and that makes everything more expensive. Groceries are 60% more expensive in Honolulu than they are on average across the country, with eggs averaging 3 times the price of any other city. The average home in Hawaii is over $730,000, and only 29% of residents can afford home ownership. The median 2-bedroom apartment costs $1,651 across the states, while in Honolulu, a 2-bedroom place will set you back $3,500. Number 3. Billings, Montana has the highest rate of depression in America. We've already seen that Wyoming has the highest suicide rate in America, but that may be in part because people are not open to seeking help for things like depression. If they did, perhaps the statistics in Billings, Montana would be different. Billings has the highest rate of depression in the country. About 7.1% of the entire US population has been diagnosed with major depressive disorder. Keep in mind, that's just the people diagnosed, so the real number is likely much higher. It's just that many people have not sought help. On a city level, Billings, Montana has a rate of 31% of its citizens diagnosed with depression. That's over 4 times the national average. Only 2 other cities ranked over 30%, and those were Knoxville and Kingsport, Bristol. So why would Billings be such a hub for depression? There are actually a number of potential causes that have been looked into that range from vitamin D deficiency to altitude to high prevalence of demographics most susceptible to major depression and mental illness. Number 2. West Virginia is the most overweight state in America. There's been no shortage of media coverage for decades now about the average American's diet and weight, and often, though erroneously, America is often considered the fattest country in the world. That doesn't change the fact that many Americans do live unhealthy lifestyles, and about 30.7% of them are overweight. Amongst all states, West Virginia is the standout for being the most overweight. Only West Virginia and Kentucky have a prevalence of self-reported obesity above 40%, and while Kentucky is ranked at 40.3%, West Virginia comes in at 40.6%. Number 1. Louisiana ranks as the most polluted state in America. Louisiana is known for a lot of things, including Cajun cuisine and Mardi Gras, but it also holds the more troubling distinction of being the most polluted state in the country as well. The state is loaded with industrial plants that produce high levels of toxins, which have polluted air quality and waterways for years now. In 2022, studies linked the remarkably high cancer rates in Louisiana to their extreme air pollution. It's so bad that the stretch between Baton Rouge and New Orleans is literally known as Cancer Alley.